truly holding our focus on only Colorado grapes.
Yep.
But currently we do get some of our stuff.
Okay.
And our sugar, from the great sugar cane farms here in Colorado.
The massive sugar fields out on the western slope.
Yeah, so but we...
Welcome into another episode of a Colorado Craft podcast by Mile High Bourbon and Rye. My name is Zach. I'm the host of the show. If you're new here, we talk about all things Colorado craft, more often than not with a delicious dram of some form of Colorado spirit in our hand. Today, I'm super stoked to be sitting here in front of a couple of really great looking stills with a couple of gentlemen from Bear Creek Distillery. I've got Jay and Ryan here, so very excited to be talking to you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, really looking forward to this. I've been a big fan of Bear Creek for a long time.
We appreciate you've always supported our special releases and our anniversary parties.
Oh, yeah.
That's big. Thank you.
Huge blast, always doing all of those things. I finally scored a bottle of the cask strength rum last year.
Oh, nice.
Every other year I'd come down, it's like, oh, we sold out yesterday. Like,
Yeah.
no, that...
It's always yesterday.
Yep,
It's
every
always
time.
yesterday.
But, and that's such a fun product for sure. So, like I said, if you're new to the show, this is, again, focus all on Colorado craft. So I've talked to brewers, photographers, distillers, trail makers in Boulder County. I mean, really, if you're doing something neat in the state of Colorado, I want to talk to you about it. And again, huge whiskey guy, love your guys' products. So
Thank you.
let's talk a bit about your guys' production, what you're doing here, the very furnace-esque stills that are running behind us at the moment.
Well, luckily, you've got our ambassador and our tour guide right here who can tell you all about it.
Oh, awesome.
Hello. I guess that's me.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah. Let's. How do you want to start? What do you want to talk about?
Well, let's say if you were giving people the super quick tour of exactly what they can see on camera right now, what are you talking about here?
I think the biggest things that we like to celebrate are, where the still is coming from and kind of what it does for us. So we decided to partner with Kota, which is a German producer of stills.
Okay.
We love what they make. We love the design around it, the engineering. It's what really worked for us. And they were so great to work with. They had to customize the still a bit to get it in our building, because typically these columns that they sell are a bit taller. And that just was not going to work in this space. And so they had to custom make them a little bit shorter and wider, because we didn't want to sacrifice any surface area of copper just to get them in here. And so
He would be a good representation of what they were supposed to look like, and I'm a better representation of what
the
they
final
are.
product.
Yes.
yeah,
A little shorter and wider.
Exactly. That is why they hired me, is just like be able to tell that story a little bit better, visual aids and whatnot. So Kota still, it is considered a pot column hybrid still. The name kind of tells you what it is. It's hybrid in that you have two different types of stills running together. So you have, on the left here, a pot still, which is pretty traditional style of distillation, been around for a really long time. And then it's paired with a couple of columns, which are a bit more of a modern take on distillation. Modern meaning there's still, the idea is quite old, but a lot newer than a pot still, let's just say. So by combining those two things, essentially it gives us a lot more flexibility in what we're producing, especially when it comes to like a clear spirit, like a vodka, which needs to be distilled kind of a lot.
Yep.
And the columns are really, really beneficial when it comes to that.
Okay. So a real quick rundown for people who, might not be as familiar with the terms, and even sometimes I get a little jumbled with it as well. Sure. Because I'm not, I don't do this part of it daily, and I'm not that smart of a person.
Yeah, same.
What's kind of the process between the difference between going through a pot still and a column still?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, and I'll have to answer it in the context of what we do with it.
Perfect.
So essentially how, again, it can function in a lot of different ways depending on what you're doing in your setup. But for us, we always start in the pot still. So that's where you're going to load your, your wash or your distiller's beer into the pot, and that's how you're going to start. And so essentially what we're doing is that's our heat source, and we're going to evaporate out that alcohol for the first time from the pot. And then from there, it will enter the columns. And essentially what the columns are going to do are it's going to take that vapor and force it to condense and then evaporate again over and over and over again. And we can kind of pick and choose how many times we want it to evaporate and condense, depending on what we're making. Again, with vodka, essentially what we're really trying to do is get to 190 proof coming off of our still.
Okay.
That is defined by the TTB. They tell us if you're trying to use that word vodka, it has to be 190 proof or higher when it comes off of your still.
I didn't realize vodka was that specific. For
Exactly,
that. Okay.
exactly. And so in order to do that, you just have to kind of, again, evaporate and condense a bunch of times, because every time you're doing that, you're kind of drawing out more, we'll just call them things that are providing flavor.
Yeah.
Essentially. And so, with the columns, we get to pick and choose how many times we're evaporating and condensing. If we're making that whiskey, we want to do that fewer times because we are trying to hold on to those flavors that are already present in the distiller's beer that we use for vodka, but we're trying to pull them out versus, again, whiskey, we leave them in.
Okay.
So with the columns, they're just a lot more efficient, because if we only had a pot still, you could still make a vodka in theory. But you would have to essentially distill and reload it back into your pot over and over and over and over again just to get it up to that 190 proof point.
Gotcha.
And so it's kind of like the columns are a bunch of little tiny pot stills is kind of how I like to look at it. And that is very much a nutshell approach, and it's there's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of what's going on with that pot column combination.
Well, I think that's perfect, and that gives you guys the flexibility, because I know you put out a couple of so I'm not a big vodka person. I definitely like the more brown liquor than I do the clear liquor, but especially for mixing, you find some good stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I've always been a fan of the vodka that comes out of here as well, so it gives you, like you said, it's a lot more flexible, right? So you can do both of those. So all of your spirits are running through the same setup right here.
Exactly. And again, it'll be set up a little bit differently. For example, the vodka is the only product where we use both of our columns.
Okay.
Because we just need all those extra distillations, if you will.
Yeah.
And so with everything else will run through just that one single column in a few different ways. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So then you guys also have, your vodkas, let's just real quick touch on those, because I know you've got a corn vodka and a rye vodka.
Also a wheat vodka.
Oh, you do have a wheat vodka?
We do.
Okay, cool.
We all have, if you're a mass-produced vodka fan, you might not like the vodkas that we produce. Ours actually have flavor to them.
Yeah.
Although that being said, I think our corn vodka is a good representation of what a flavor profile of a larger distillery producing a vodka, if that makes any sense.
I think so. And I know that I've tried the rye and the corn vodka. I don't actually think that I've tried the wheat yet, but the corn for certain is just a little bit sweeter.
It is.
And then the rye's just got, like you said, there's a hint of kind of those flavors left, and you've just got a little bit of that rye spiciness left.
And, it sort of mirrors what we have going on with our whiskey profiles as well, right? We've got a wheat whiskey, which is just a little bit softer. You've got a rye, which has a bit of punch and pronounced flavors.
Yep.
And then we will be releasing a corn whiskey in the future. She's in back laying down right now. But those flavor profiles are kind of what you expect from a bourbon,
Yep, absolutely.
A little sweet, little sweetness forward. So it's funny how all that stuff works in concert with each other.
Well, and that's really cool to think, basically, like you said, you only use the pot and one column if you're doing the whiskeys probably, but then for the vodkas, you go a little more, make that a little more efficient.
Yeah.
All right. That's pretty awesome. And now I feel a little bit smarter. Hopefully everybody listening to this will feel a little bit smarter as well.
Yeah.
But definitely a very cool, and very nice looking stills as well.
Shout out to Matt, our assistant distiller. He does a good job of keeping them wiped down and looking nice and shiny.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Matt.
And it's great to welcome, because basically how we're sitting right now, if you walk into the tasting room, this is the view that you're greeted with, along with the awesome bar, which we'll add a shot in as well. But it's definitely a very very cool distillery type of look. So, now when did Bear Creek get started?
Well, we incorporated 12/12 of 12, and that's what we identify as our founding date.
Okay.
And then we opened to the public. It took us about 2 years to get the doors open.
Gotcha.
So it was actually November of 14.
Okay.
That's seems like a long time ago, but at the same time, it was a snap of the fingers. It feels like.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, the planning process and sort of our vision making really started in 12.
Okay.
That's when we bought this building. It started with sort of a harebrained scheme of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if,
Yeah.
and then that turned into more of a structured meeting type situation, and then we'd meet, monthly, and then it became weekly, and then 12/12/12, we bought this place. And then it took us a couple years to get open. In that time, it allowed Jeff, who's our head distiller and also one of my business partners, it allowed us a lot of time to really pick and choose from distilleries that we respected throughout the country, because both of us kind of took little road trips. And
Oh, nice.
Jeff went to Journeyman, and Cota is their American representation is Koval in Chicago.
Okay.
So Jeff spent some time there. I went out to North Carolina, and then of course all the distilleries that are local here we visited. And one of the things that became pretty quickly evident to us is you had these great products and this amazing, beautiful machinery to look at.
Yeah.
And then there was many times that Jeff and I, literally not necessarily together, but we would share stories that we were sitting in a folding lawn chair or like literally at a picnic table, which is fine. But what we really wanted to do at the time in 12, minus a couple of examples, Strain being one with their tour in their bar area, we really wanted to bring like a high-end cocktail experience to our business model.
Okay.
So we took a lot of time and care into designing this place. So that's kind of how we got started. Jeff and I and two of my other business partners, one who likes to stay behind the scenes, we all went to Bear Creek High School in Lakewood.
Okay.
And we basically grew up with each other. And I had a pretty successful business with my father-in-law, and my wife and I are junior high sweethearts. So I told her, I was like, I'm going to go into business with these guys. She grew up with these same guys. She's like, no, you're not. But here we are, 10-ish plus years later. And
More than a decade. That's a good run.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a really cool story, because I didn't know where or why Bear Creek ended up being the name that you guys chose. But all three of you in the same high school growing up together, I mean, that's way cool.
And it's funny, like we'll do festivals in Colorado Springs, and there's a Bear Creek in Colorado Springs. And people are like, are you Bear Creek because of Bear Creek? Yeah, absolutely. Every state, Vermont, there's a Bear Creek in Vermont. And you're like, yep. So it's sort of interchangeable, but that's truly why we called it Bear Creek Distillery.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And then, like I said, 10 plus years later, you mentioned the thought that goes into it. When you come and sit down in here, you can certainly tell that it was like, it looks very well done. There was clearly a lot of thought that went behind it, and then your execution was really good too, because I know there can be tons of planning and you have all these great ideas, but then the execution is, not always as nice.
True. And and you have to really cut through a lot of bureaucratic red tape.
Oh yeah.
So that's always in the back of our mind when we're like, all right, thinking about our next steps. We're like, okay, well, we got to be one step ahead, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So it's that part of it's sometimes a headache, but I wouldn't give up the neighborhood that we have here. When we bought in 12, this neighborhood was a little bit, it's not what it is now, let's say that. But it's been really cool to watch the neighborhood grow up around us, and I feel like, us and the Brutal Poodle and Ratio, we've sort of been anchors in this neighborhood for development.
Yeah.
And we've been very community focused. We have lots of events here. We do a art show the first Friday of every month. That's super fun. We have We have DJs, resident DJs that play Saturday nights and some Fridays. And Sunday we have something called Sunsets,
Okay.
and that's a very cool vibe. So we also throw our own parties. We had our adult lemonade stand
I saw the
a
ads
couple
for that,
weeks
yep.
ago, and that was a fun day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a really good turnout for
I
that
definitely wanted to come down. So, like, is it just like lemonade cocktails? You guys got a whole bunch of options to drink like that?
It's usually just, a couple. I think we did a wheat whiskey lemonade and vodka lemonade, and then ratio. They were selling beer there, so it was sort of an eclectic group. We had
Partnered with Topo Chico.
Topo Chico was
Shout
out
out.
there. Shout out to the Cheeks.
Nobody says that.
No, that's not a thing. Oh,
Darn it, it
Let's
is
make
now.
it a thing. I'm good with that.
it's so fetch.
Hello, everybody. Before we continue with today's episode, I just want to take a quick moment to talk to you all about Centennial Cuts. Centennial Cuts is a Colorado-owned company. They've been growing beef here in the state of Colorado, down in southeast Colorado, for generations. The Larson family has been doing this forever, and they make some of the best beef that you will ever have. That is any type of beef that you can really think of. They've got all the best roast cuts. They've got all the best steak cuts. They've got fantastic, and I mean fantastic, ground beef. You can also get beef jerky. You can get all beef hot dogs, and you can even get pet treats. Anything beef, they've got it at Centennial Cuts. You can purchase from them down at their store in Colorado Springs, or even more convenient, head over to centennialcuts.com, put in promo code MHBR, get 10% off of your first order, and then have it shipped directly to your door. That's right, you don't have to go anywhere. You get the best beef delivered directly to your door, so you can then throw it directly on your grill. Centennial Cuts, like I said, is absolutely phenomenal beef. My whole family loves it. Everybody I've cooked it for loves it, and you can even find them in some of the top steakhouses in the state. So be sure to check them out. Thank you to Centennial Cuts for sponsoring today's episode, and make sure that you go over to centennialcuts.com, use that promo code MHBR, Mile High Bourbon Rye, MHBR. Save 10% off of your first order, have it delivered right to your door. Again, thank you, Centennial Cuts, and now back to today's episode. Cheers.
Yeah.
So, we like to do fun stuff like that. You know, it's definitely an avenue of creativity for us.
Well, and I've seen too, like, again, kind of the point of one of the things I really try to hammer home anyway is just how much there is in Colorado, not even just in the spirits world, but just overall. So having a First Friday with artists that come down, you got local DJs that come in and play sets here. I mean, all that stuff I think is, I love the fact that you guys do it because it promotes obviously your guys' business, but it brings other people up as well. Like you said you're an anchor in this neighborhood. I think that's probably a really good term for it, since you're able to have that many local type of people around.
Right. And, it's if you go back and read our Google reviews, people are like, I never would have come to this neighborhood, and those have evolved into what a cool neighborhood, now that you're getting those. So that's definitely been sort of a feather in our cap.
That's awesome. And then just kind of as a nice segue from the local artist piece on the First Fridays, I know you guys have that new series that you're starting to release that I actually can't think of the name.
We call it the Bear Creek Artist Series.
Okay, Bear Creek Artist Series. So,
And this last one, the label was designed by an artist named Patrick Hansen,
okay.
who's super talented. He's had art shows here, and he happens to be one of our resident DJs. He plays on the last Saturday of every month. So,
Seriously. All right.
yeah. So we kind of gave him our blessing to sort of diverge from our normal marketing.
Yep.
And he created this really cool. We can you grab a bottle?
Oh yeah,
Take a look?
100% we can do that. I'll throw an enlarged image up too for people to look at, but definitely check out the bottle here as well, because it is. I think the labeling is beautiful with it. It's definitely different from what you guys normally have.
Yeah, it's just a step away or a step out from what we've done in the past.
Right here for right now.
And this is sort of going to, just so people know that this is a special product.
Yeah.
The labeling will be similar with different artwork for the next release because a different artist will do the art.
Yep.
So Breckenridge does a similar thing, but
Actually, was unaware of that.
they do an artist series.
Okay.
I think what makes us just a little bit different from theirs, these artists are artists that we know
Yeah,
and that we support here.
which I think is really awesome.
So, and it gives them a chance, like another gal named Chelsea Christie, like shout out to Chelsea. She does the Denver Chalk Art Festival. She actually won a contest here. We put her design on a t-shirt.
Oh, nice.
So it's fun for them. It's great for us.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, that's a blast.
We also, along with this, have released or shortly will release our third cask strength rye offering
Okay.
that we've ever done, and that'll be just out of the tasting room. Yeah,
Okay, so only available here.
yeah.
That's right. Breakfast stout. That's what I thought. That it was just aged in a interesting barrel.
And it's wheated bourbon and wheat whiskey blended together.
Okay, so blend of the two and then finished in a breakfast stout.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was. I like that we just kind of went off the rails with this release in a lot of ways, like with the label, and then kind of what we put into it, because the barrel itself started as a Bear Creek straight bourbon barrel.
Okay.
And then it was sent to Berkeley Alley Brewing, where they aged that breakfast stout in it. And it was a stout with maple, cinnamon, and coffee, I believe. And then, took it back after they emptied it. And I think they just aged the stout in it for a few months. And then it was the first time that we blended two whiskeys together. So that was also a first for us, that wheat whiskey and wheated bourbon. And then let it sit for an additional 6 or 7 months.
Okay.
In that now used bourbon to beer barrel. It was just it was a fun one for us. It was really cool to see that come out and just do something completely different.
I like that a lot, especially, and getting to try it for the first time sitting here as well. And it is, I mean, you definitely can tell that they added the extra in the beer, right? You've got a little
sure.
bit of that kind of maple syrup flavor just on the back end, but you guys' whiskey stands up to that very well because it's still the overpowering start. You get
Absolutely.
a lot of those flavors on it. So
Got to be whiskey first.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that turned out really good. I'm enjoying the heck out of it so far. So, but I agree. It is very not off-brand, but kind of a skew, a tangent from what
tastes
you guys
something
normally
different.
do. Yeah, which is great. I think doing some wacky things every now and then is a good way to find
Wacky things by a bunch of wacky guys.
Just wacky guys.
We are getting close to having our rack house ready, which is just a little bit down the block here.
Okay.
Not the next building, but the next building.
Okay.
It's going to free up a lot of space for us.
Yeah.
And that's really when I think you'll see us spread our wings with trying some interesting finishes, some one-off stuff, just because our major headache right now is just space.
Yeah.
So it really is special when we take some of these special releases because we could be laying down some of our inline stuff. So it's taking space. So we have to make sure that it's special when it comes out.
Yeah. And something that's, I mean, clearly, again, it's reflective of the same thing that you were talking about for the bar itself earlier. It is definitely a little bit more out there from what you normally do, but there's obviously a lot of thought behind it. There's a lot of intention behind it.
Yeah.
And the execution, again, is very, very well done because this is a great, great bottle. So
We should we make it. We do everything here, right?
Yeah,
Just Ryan and I.
As far as I know.
Yeah, we are totally 100% responsible for it. No, we just flap our gums about the hard work that the guys in the back do. So
yeah, it's shout out to the guys that do the hard work.
yeah,
in the
that's
back.
right.
Absolutely.
How many barrels can you guys age right now before your rack house opens?
Like anywhere between 310 and 320, depending on how creative we get with where we put them.
Yeah. And what's the rack house going to expand you to?
I think it's 1,200 barrels.
Nice. Okay, so you guys are going to see a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big thing for us, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because seeing that production be able to grow, I mean, and then that gives you the chance to try some older expressions as well, because you don't have
Right.
to, you're not like, well, this one's really good, but I'd love to see what it can do. We
Yeah.
just don't have the space to age it. So that, I mean,
Yeah, that's and I'm somewhat envious, although also very respectful. Our good friend Al and the gang down at Laws, they got to an 8-year pretty quick.
yeah.
Whereas they're even on 10 and 11, but we were handcuffed a bit at the start. So we are just now coming out with our first 8-year-old single barrel later this year. So,
Ooh, all right.
and that'll be different from our current branding. Not to give anything away, but still in line. Just it's going to be super funky and fun.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's one to look out for.
Then you guys definitely have, I mean, your two bottles that kind of stand out the most, at least I've noticed in shelves, are your straight bourbon and your wheated bourbon barrels, because they're a little bit different shape. They're different shape than a lot of barrels on shelves right now.
Yeah.
And the labeling's done, I guess, kind of what's the idea behind changing the bottle shape just for two different releases
Right.
that you have?
Those are our flagship brands.
Okay.
You know, those are the two products that we always set out to make.
Gotcha.
You know, with the licensing that we have, we can only make cocktails using the spirits that we produce.
Yep.
So we wanted to be able to make a wide range of cocktails, but our true passion was always making whiskey, straight bourbon in particular.
Okay.
So we just wanted to denote that with the branding, that those really are where we want to put our, you know, that we stand on. You know, those
Awesome.
two products in particular.
It kind of works too. The way the bottles are shaped, like I can see them being like the foundation of what everything else is kind of built on top of.
Yeah.
To get all metaphorical here.
Yeah,
for you
no,
guys.
I mean, now that you looked at it, I mean, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
But the weeded bourbon is one that I recommend to people all the time. Just it's kind of a standby. It's one that I try to always have in my bar in the basement if I can. Like one that, because I'm a big fan of a lot of the bourbons and stuff as well, but there's something about a nice weeded one that's just, they're a little easier drinking. It's a little
Yeah.
bit more of like, especially in the hot summer, like when we're recording this, you can do a couple of cocktails with it that are a little bit easier as well. It's nothing that's like as, I guess, fiery as like a rye or a high rye bourbon or anything like that. So
We've always set out to make approachable spirits.
yeah,
You know, I'd rather someone drink our product rather than collecting it. I mean, please collect it, but I'd rather you enjoy it, you know. And if it's like a bottle that you can only have one pour of every 3 months because you forget how spicy it is, you know, or something like that. Whereas I feel for any of the spirits up in our lineup, you know, it's drinkable. You can,
Yeah.
and it's of high quality as well. You know, we're grain to glass right here, so that's always been one of the focal points for us.
that's awesome. And I would definitely agree with it. I think everything that you guys have on the shelf is very approachable and very, very much a drinkable spirit. And enjoy the heck out of your cocktails down here too.
Thank you.
On the grain to glass piece, there is something I do want to talk a little bit about that as well. Before we go a little forward, I do need to talk about the sponsor for the show, Centennial Cuts. They are a local local beef company. Man, they're awesome beef. That's what you got to know. Raised down southeast Colorado. They're, I believe, just grass-fed. Get to walk around, do all of that, live their best life, and then before they end up going to get processed and everything for us to eat, they're finished with local grains, local, I think, spent brewers and distillers grains as well. Gives them a perfect marbling. I gotta say, like, we cook them out for get-togethers, family get-togethers. We did it for the 4th of July. We did it for Father's Day, like all of these things. And every time that I've pulled the steak off the grill, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And their ground beef is the best ground beef I've found, hands down. Just, I mean, perfect amount of fat content.
Close to dinner time.
Yeah. You'll get, if you're watching this or listening to this, or as we're sitting here talking, like, you'll get hungry thinking about it.
Yeah.
For sure. I definitely do. But they are phenomenal people. They've also got great beef jerky. They've got summer sausage, all sorts of things, everything that you could want beef-wise. Their brisket is, I still need to get one to cook it up. I've gone with all the steak cuts that they have so far. Brisket's going to be my next run, and throw that on the smoker, see how that goes. Can't wait to try that. But check them out. They've got shops, kiosks all around, including in DIA. So next time you're traveling out to visit another distillery around the country or world, B terminal, they've got a kiosk there. Pick up some snacks to have on the flight, because the snacks on the flight are all disappointing now. And make sure that you are supporting Colorado through all that. You can also order online. Head to centennialcuts.com. They've got their full list of everything. And when you place your first order with code MHBR, that's Mile High Bourbon Rye, MHBR, you'll save 10% off that order. They'll deliver it right to your door as well. So, I mean, no reason not to check them out. So, Thank you, Centennial Cuts, for sponsoring again. And again, on that grain note is kind of where I wanted to hit the next piece as well. You grain to glass, you guys are all local grains then as well. Where do you get those from?
Well, our main corn supplier is the Whiskey Sisters out of Burlington.
Yep, that's a name that pops up quite often.
Yep,
Yeah.
We've gone out to the farm, and last year, or was it 2
A
years
couple
ago?
years ago.
We went for harvest, and Ryan drove the combine.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah.
how was that?
It was good. They had to shut everything down for a little while to fix it, but no, I'm just kidding. No, it's great. It's important for me to have a good connection with the people that are growing our ingredients. I come from a really big agricultural region in Kentucky, and that's always been a part of my life.
Yeah.
And I like that I still get to celebrate that and know these people and see how they're doing things, and it's great. Like that, I already appreciated our product and the ingredients that went into it, but being able to go out and talk to the family a little bit and just drink a lot,
Yeah.
it was great. Like it really helps me appreciate them even more, for sure.
That's awesome. And I mean, I'm picturing that you just got in that and drove it like you stole it, and that's why they had to shut it down.
No.
That's a blast, though. I mean, that's really cool that they let you even run that out there. I'm sure if I showed up, they'd be like, yeah, you can sit in it, but we're going to hold on to the keys.
But yeah, no.
It was cool. They actually, speaking of local beef, I think the cattle rancher next door, we were eating one of his cows out there. They made it. I believe it was brisket.
Yeah.
It was.
And it was
actually,
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of a hodgepodge of where we get our grain from. We get our rye from. We're still with the Heartland Mill, which is just across the border in Kansas.
Okay.
It's within the FDA's designation of local.
Okay.
So we also started distilling with Kernza, which is a sustainable grain that we get from some guys here in Colorado.
Interesting.
Yep. It's a wheatgrass that has a flavor profile similar to rye.
Okay. Interesting.
So we're excited to see where that comes out.
That'll be neat.
We've made some connections getting some rye from the San Luis Valley as well. So truly honing our focus on only Colorado grains.
Yep.
But currently we do get some of our stuff from Kansas.
Okay. Well,
And our sugar, from the great sugar cane farms here in Colorado.
The massive sugar fields out on the western slope.
Yeah, so that we get our sugar outsourced of the state.
Yeah.
So.
Of course.
And the only thing we don't do here as far as the grain to glass model would be you don't mill our own grain.
Okay.
So everything gets ground down to the consistency. Wouldn't you call it almost like a AP flour?
Yeah, it's very flour-like.
Okay.
As in a very fine mill.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I hadn't seen something quite like that before coming here, and I like it a lot.
And Ryan used to be a baker, so
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I used to eat my grains.
Yep.
Now I prefer to drink them.
right,
That's fair.
different
Same
mode of
ingredient.
intake.
Yeah.
And it was a fun crossover for me too, just seeing how there are a lot of similarities in processes, especially when it comes to fermentation, and it's all about the flavor. It's celebrating flavors in different ways.
I guess there is a decent amount of fermentation that happened in a lot of baking. I never even
Absolutely.
considered that before.
Yeah, I was definitely on the bread side, and so like sourdough, for example, is
Yep.
fermented dough essentially, and so it's all about building flavor, and that's what we're doing here too, is building on those layers of flavor and how you get there, and the ingredients that kind of create those flavors.
That's really cool, especially to go from, like you said, eating it to drinking it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of a neat turn. You wouldn't think like Baker Distillery are like have a connection like that. It's
Yeah.
not something that just immediately clicked, at least in my
For sure.
head. But
Oh no, definitely
that's
not.
cool.
But there's definitely a lot there that was very consistent for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then, yes, you said you have it milled down to kind of a flour-like consistency. And then, do you guys have like the spent grains and stuff go back out or anything? Or because
Nope.
it's milled so low, you don't really have that?
Exactly.
Yep.
So it stays in a liquid state.
Okay.
So we actually are able to wash the effluent out with wastewater. So
Oh, okay.
another thing with the spent grains, they've started to tax the spent grains as a food source. So
Oh,
we've actually managed to avoid that.
that's very helpful because, man, really,
Yeah.
because that seems like just such a nice way to keep stuff.
Right.
Like, yeah, you know what? We're
You know they're not
get
going to miss.
into
They're
all that.
not going to miss out on a buck.
Here's a chance to make $1. Doesn't matter. Yep. Oh, that's disappointing to hear, but cool that you guys are able to kind of work
It's worked out.
past that. Yep.
You know, and Ryan, you disagree with me if you want to. The consistency of the flour, I feel like, rather than a cracked whole grain, we're able to extrapolate more usable fermentable sugars.
Okay.
So it's actually more efficient.
Okay.
So I feel like, we're getting a better ratio from distillate to barrel.
It can be.
Yeah.
That's a tough one for me to talk about because there's plenty of folks that are obviously using a hammer mill having some bigger particle size, so it's common.
Yeah.
But I think it is with that sort of conversion, I guess. The timing is going to be different, and I think there's flavor variables there as well. I can't speak super intelligently about that, but it is a bit more efficient, like time-wise, for sure. Like we get everything broken down really fast. And,
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm sorry to any grain nerds out there. It's not quite sure the answers around that, but yeah, it is very efficient for us.
His email is Ryan.
Well, and I mean, you're not wrong though. Just in discussing really about anything in especially the distilling world, there's almost always some line that somebody will be like, "Nope, this is the wrong way to do it."
Yeah.
One that I came across a lot is chill filtering. That seems to be a relative, or at least a few years ago when I would talk to people, it was a very kind of divisive conversation. I might have died down a little bit now because I don't get into it as much with people, but that one's always kind of been another one of those. Does it actually take away flavor? Does it just, so.
I mean, I have an opinion, obviously.
Let's hear it.
Of course he does.
No, I mean, I think that is honestly started a lot with craft distilleries.
Yeah.
Just kind of wanting to put forward something that is just raw. It kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening that may not be familiar with that, let's maybe define that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So chill filtering is essentially once your distillate is coming off of your still, you throw it in a freezer.
Yep.
And the idea here is you are kind of breaking an emulsion. So if there's any like fatty acids or anything in that liquid that's not alcohol, the temperature causes them to separate. And then you can kind of filter those out. So we do that with our vodka and our rum. Question.
Yep.
Nailed it. Knew that. Didn't have to ask. Because we do want to clarify that spirit as much as we can.
Yeah.
But with our whiskey, we do skip that step.
Okay.
And you can definitely make the argument that there is a textural difference, like that, because you're kind of leaving in more like fatty acid esters, if you will, all of these things that are providing flavor and body. By chill filtering your whiskey, you're not like destroying it.
No.
But I think that with craft distilleries, it was something that we could, celebrate a little bit, like put on a bottle and say like this is just like the pure spirit.
Yeah.
But you've got to look at big distilleries, right? Like Buffalo Trace chill filters everything.
Yes, they do.
Like Wild Turkey, and that's turns out people like those brands.
That's got to be a big freezer.
That's gonna be a huge
Real
freezer.
big freezer.
Yeah, and so I think it's interesting that it's become like a really big point of contention sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like these big distilleries that we all know and love, genuinely love, that's not a conversation, and I think that maybe a lot of people don't understand that they chill filter.
Right.
And one benefit to it is, if that spirit gets cold and it's not chill filtered, it will get cloudy.
Yep.
And so that can aesthetically, it doesn't look great. And so that can really, if you're a big brand, you need that spirit to be as consistent as possible with like flavor and appearance.
Yeah.
Like that's really a tool that you can use to help with that.
And that's one thing I know with the chill filtering is that keeps it from getting that kind of cloudier appearance on the shelves, especially.
Right,
because
exactly.
before people are aware, and this is actually, and I love talking points like this, especially to talk about why you guys are choosing non-chill filtered for like the whiskeys and stuff. I think it makes a lot of sense back before people had, the internet and a infinite wealth of information at their tips. You walk into a store and, okay, this one looks kind of cloudy and a little off, and this one looks like clear brown whiskey. I'm going to go with the not cloudy one because why wouldn't I go with that?
Yeah.
But now that we have the ability to just, ask, hey Google or hey ChatGPT, can you give me the explanation on this, and get that AI whatever and learn all of these things. I think that having that conversation is a little bit more beneficial now, especially.
Oh, for sure. And I think that if we're saying that chill filtering is, if you're chill filtering, you're removing so much flavor, if that's what you're calling flavor, then you messed up something along the way because flavor is coming from so many other places.
So many other spots.
So I'll stop talking about that now.
No, I think I would agree with you on that one. I think that chill filtering, it doesn't really remove that much. It does change the consistency a little bit. But what I'd love to do is find a distillery that has the same whiskey, chill filtered and non-chill filtered, and then just try them next to each other.
Absolutely.
But, that would also require doing 2 batches of the same thing and just one randomly non-chill filtered. Sure. So I don't think Beam's going to release a non-chill filtered for me to do a little comparison.
Exactly.
Although I could write them.
I mean, I hear they're super open to transparency and
to the suggestions of small-time Colorado podcasters. I believe that's correct.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I do want to talk a little bit about you guys' rum too, because like I said, I finally managed to snag a bottle of the cast strength rum, and Colorado rums are always a bit contentious for me as well, because I think they tend to be kind of funky compared to like a Jamaican rum or anything else from the Caribbean. Your guys' cast strength rum is, well, it's cast strength, which is just a blast because there's not a ton of those that I find locally, although I think a couple more maybe popping up. Either way, where it seems to be kind of the only one that doesn't fit the mold of the rest of your spirit. How did you end up doing a rum and then get your yearly cast strength release?
Right. Well, it was an inline product for us the first 3 or 4 years, maybe even 5. I mean, you could buy it at liquor stores, but
Yeah.
now it's just a release in the distillery itself. That project is near and dear to my heart because it started out as a guest barrel program.
Okay.
So obviously we didn't have any of our own used whiskey barrels when we started making that product. So I think our very first one, if Jeff or Gary could back me up, I believe it was an Austin Nichols, either rare breed or wild turkey barrel. I can't remember.
Okay.
And that one maintained as a guest barrel program pretty significantly through the timeline. We have filled some Bear Creek barrels, but we've had several Laws barrels that we used. We did like a Peach Street 6-year bourbon. We've actually got a Blanton's barrel that we have full of rum. So it's been kind of fun because it's always a little bit different.
Yeah.
And depending on the barrel itself, the proofs aren't always consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had them, as low as 121, 122, all the way up to,
low 130s.
low 130s.
Yeah. I mean, our current one's 130.9.
Yeah. And we found out that, because we were doing it like 18 months, 2 years, the stuff that we release now has been in a used bourbon barrel 5, sometimes close to 6 years. So
Wow. Okay.
So it really develops a lot of fun, funky flavors. And it drinks like a whiskey, but it still has enough rum essence.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay, this is actually a rum.
Yep.
So that was kind of a fun thing that we started and tried with, and now it's part of the rotation.
Yeah. Well, and I'm always, like I said, I'm geared up every year. I'm like, all right, I'm going to give myself a bottle, and then ended up missing it. But last year when I finally got one, just
You can find them rarely. I've seen them rarely in the stores. Have you run across one
No.
in a while?
No, yeah. I don't think they exist anymore.
There's one store by my house that has one bottle left.
Really.
And I keep telling him, I'm like, Steve, you should buy that for yourself. But, you know, our rum's super crisp and clean.
Yeah.
Like our even our silver rum. And then the spiced rum is a house infusion. So we actually take an infusion here in house. And it's vanilla bean, black peppercorn, allspice, ginger, cinnamon. And we basically you cheesecloth it and put it in there and let it naturally infuse.
Okay.
And that is a big hit for us.
Yeah.
Fall moving into, you know, it's great for your eggnogs, dark stormies. My wife drinks it with chai tea, shots.
Yep.
Taking it right to the dome.
Straight to the dome.
And then we actually will be releasing some gold rum. So
Okay.
it's just silver rum in a charred barrel. So
Yeah.
we'll we're getting excited about that.
That's awesome. You guys, I mean, you've got a lot that it sounds like is kind of coming down the pipeline here to be very excited about, in
a good
addition to
time.
everything else.
Yeah, it's an exciting time.
That's awesome. Sweet, guys. Let's see. Trying to think if there was anything else that I really wanted to talk about. I know, in the kind of sense of the Colorado thing, I know I posted a whole bunch about it. I got a whole bunch of people to buy bottles. You guys were part of that 7 Distillery collaboration.
Yeah.
Talk about kind of how that came together, because you're the first distillery I think I've really got to talk to that was a part of this, and just how that started and how you guys ended up doing that.
So that was initially, I mean, the details were foggy, and that was a lot of whiskey and beer ago. But I think the person that deserves the most credit for launching that project is Sean Smiley with State 38.
Okay.
So we actually have 2 barrels of rye whiskey sitting up at Woody Creek.
Okay.
That is 2.5, if not 3 years older than that wheat whiskey was.
Gotcha.
So it's still tucked away up there somewhere. And it was State 38 and us, PT Woods, so Woods High Mountain Distillery,
Yep.
Old Elk, Woody Creek, of course,
Yep.
and then Laws. And then the next go round, 291, as I mentioned, the specifics are escaping me right now, but
Yeah.
the 7 distilleries that came through and did the wheat collaboration,
Yeah.
that sat down at Laws.
Okay.
And then everybody picked their own charity
Yep.
that they donated the proceeds to the bottle sales to. We actually partnered with Laws because why am I drawing a
Urban
blank?
Peak.
Oh, thank you. Urban Peak sits directly halfway between Bear Creek Distillery and Laws Whiskey House.
Okay.
And so we decided that it would make a greater impact if we pulled our donation.
Yeah.
And you drive down the street, they've built a pretty amazing campus over the last probably about 8 months to a year. It's a high school for unhoused teens. So
Okay.
they're actually going to put, or they have put, I should say, a residential element. So these kids will actually have a warm, safe place to stay and live while they're going to high school, trying to have somewhat of a normal high school experience. So,
That's a really
and it was a kick-ass whiskey.
Yeah, it was. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I was able to snag a bottle of that one. I actually got it from you guys.
We sold out in, what, an hour and a half?
It was really fast. Yeah.
Yeah, I jumped online as soon as I saw it.
Yeah.
Snagged that bottle on there. My coworker goes, "Jump back on. You got to buy another one. You got to pick it up for me." So, and
That's awesome.
We do, and shameless plug, you go to our website and sign up for our email blasts.
yeah,
Because we put all kinds of fun stuff on there, like for our anniversary party, which we typically celebrate on 12/12.
yep,
The first hour we're open, all of our bottles are 40% off. Like people will come and buy cases and cases,
Yeah.
and cases of and just stock their bar for the year. And just a shout out to those people too, because we have a pretty hardcore group of supporters that whenever we do a release, like we released a 6-year-old single barrel bourbon.
Yep.
You know, and people I've known most of my life show up and they're like, I need a case for me, I need a case for my brother-in-law, and I need, you know, and just showing the love and support, you know, that's why we do this.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we get our return from
Okay.
what, you know, obviously money's great. But as long as we have enough to keep the lights on and keep the employees happy and paid, we're good. But, you know, a lot of those people coming back after years of support, that's really the important part of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the coolest thing. And I know I say this probably every episode, but the community that the Colorado whiskey scene has created has just been one of the coolest communities that I've managed to edge my way sideways to be a part of. But
You know, and it's kind of cool to see a whole, like, sort of a whole community. You know, you guys are now involved, the podcasters,
Yep.
you know, championing Colorado whiskey.
Yeah.
And then, what was my other? Ryan, why aren't you thinking and speaking for me? Because I'm not doing a very good job of it.
Sorry, I was just thinking about the next whiskey I was going to drink.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my bad.
Just sort of that satellite community that has developed around Colorado whiskey. Like, shout out to Ryan Nagley. Maybe he sees this. Today's his birthday.
oh, geez, okay, we're
Oh.
recording this on his birthday.
Yeah, and you know, like him and Philip from 291, I've made like some lifelong friends. You know.
Yeah.
And on the surface, people would say, "You guys are competitors," and I'm like, "We're not." They do single malts,
Yep.
typically. You know, that's what their focus is. They have 291. They do Aspen A. I'm not in competition with any of those guys. I'm happy when I get a chance to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think even in Colorado distilleries in general, I mean, I've never talked to one and they're like, man, I really, even off record, off air or anything, it's, you know, it's not, we're competing against each other. They're doing so many cool things, and then it sparks this idea for me. So then I tried this new thing, and then
sure.
it's truly that rising tide raises all ships
Yeah.
kind of situation.
Oh, there's some assholes out there, though.
I'm sure there are.
It's me. Talk to good pal.
But I really do think that it's made such a cool community. And like you said, definitely shout out to Ryan Nagley. Definitely shout out to 291. Those,
Yeah.
they're doing an awesome job.
For sure.
Because Ryan's, no, he's not Deerhammer. He's Boulder, right?
He's Boulder now.
Boulder.
Yep, he was.
Okay.
Well, he went Peach Street, Deerhammer.
Lenny is Deerhammer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep, and then he's been with Boulder for quite a while now,
Yeah.
and
Champion, a lot of cool stuff there.
I was going to say something that I probably shouldn't, but he's Mr. Whiskey in Colorado. He's like,
He is, I know.
you think about one person in this whole state, and you say pick one guy, you'd be like, that's right, that's
Yeah.
right, you know.
Yeah.
I think that tracks. He's got the face of Colorado whiskey. I think could definitely be him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't think he's going to lose that title for quite a while.
I'm coming for you, Nagley.
This podcast will be the start. This
That's
is gonna
right.
ramp it up right here.
I'm the new face, bud.
That's awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it. I think this has been awesome.
It's been a good time.
Hopefully people watching have learned a little bit more about Bear Creek. I certainly have. I'm always excited to come down and learn more.
Anytime.
Oh, yeah, I'll come have a seat down here at this awesome bar.
Yeah, bring the wife on a date night.
Yeah. Oh, we'll definitely come back down for one. Absolutely,
Please do.
because it's a blast down here.
Yeah.
And it's always a good time. Like even just coming in and sitting at the bar, sitting just doing nothing for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
That's-
a
I mean,
great
that's-
spot to just come sit and do nothing.
That's definitely why I'm here. I worked across the street at Corvus Coffee Roasters when they opened, and so I just came in and drank a lot of whiskey and got to know people, and it was
He never
I know.
left.
yeah, pretty much.
Just had to give him a job.
Weaseled my way in, and I love that. Like I've always enjoyed working at places where we can provide that space for people, where you just come in and like actually be seen, you know,
Yeah.
and feel like this is kind of your spot, because we all need that, you
Yeah.
know, like, we really do.
And we really, I mean, I kid Ryan, but we really are like a family around here.
Yeah.
You know, the staff, they're constantly together, even when they're not working. And you could definitely tell that people want to be here when they're working. And I think that reflects to the type of experience that you have when you're sitting on the other side of the bar.
100%. Because you go into a place that you can tell people are just, this is a job and this is what I'm here for. It doesn't necessarily make it a bad experience for me sitting there, depending on the situation. But 100%, you come into a place like this and you've got the people that are excited to be here and excited about what they're doing. It does make a huge difference because it gets you just as excited to be here and be a part of something like that. So
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again, guys. If you're enjoying the show, give us a like, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those. Ratings, reviews, share us around, word of mouth, all of that stuff helps me out tremendously. Allows me to sit here and have conversations like this because this is what I love to do. And now I'm finally able to do it. Again, shout out Centennial Cuts. I'm not just draining money into this for, nothing on return. So those guys helping out a tremendous amount there as well. Thank you again to them, centennialcuts.com. And then check out my family's business as well because they've been super supportive of this whole thing. Kicking Ass Mountain Pizza. It's burgers and hot dogs right now, but my mom unfortunately suffered a stroke, a couple of health setbacks.
I'm sorry to hear that.
She can't do pizzas at the moment, but she can make absolutely phenomenal hamburgers. So they're selling those up in Fair Play out of the food truck. So shout out to them as well, again, for all the support. And then shout out Roma Ransom for the intro and outro music. If you guys follow them, at Roma Ransom on Instagram, you'll find where they're playing next. And go give them a follow. Go check them out because they are an absolute blast to listen to. Jay, Ryan, tell the folks where they can follow you, find you guys.
Well, I was going to get Ryan's email address out earlier.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but we, of course, we have all the socials at Bear Creek Distillery, bearcreekdistillery.com, and Bear Creek Distillery on Facebook. Ryan's kind of a celebrity on our Instagram page.
Oh, good.
So,
That's where you can find me.
yeah, you can find Billy Bob Bourbon living on Instagram. So,
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's my alternative life. Yeah, I don't know. If you know, you know. So,
what is it? IYKYK?
Yep.
Got it. Come on, I'm hip.
no, you're very cool.
All right.
Totally with it.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in here. Come see me.
Yeah.
I'm here on the weekends. I do all the tours on Saturdays. If you enjoy whiskey, I do a little bit more of an in-depth, more educational sort of tour the last Friday of every month. That's very whiskey-centric.
Very worth it.
So, yeah, come let me pour you some whiskey and make you a drink. And, my coworkers make drinks better than I do, but I do pour whiskey really well. So.
Too good. And you can find me at most whiskey festivals pouring samples out of our tent.
Excellent. I'll have to come down on a last Friday to get a little bit more, try to stuff this brain with a little more
Hey,
knowledge.
there you go. Come on now.
Learn a little bit more. That sounds great. Again, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been an absolute pleasure conversation. Enjoyed the heck out of it. And to everyone watching, thank you again for joining us. And we'll talk to y'all next time. Glass is a little empty, but cheers.
Cheers. You got another one over here.
I do. Cool.
Oh.